Hey, welcome back everybody. I'm Lewis and this is Metal Lens Reviews. What's up? So, if this happens to be your first time here, you're checking out my channel, you like what you see, thank you. Please do me that favor of like, comment, subscribe. As I mentioned before, it really helps me grow the channel, spread it to the masses, and of course motivates me to provide you guys more content to watch. Alright, so what are we doing here? Well, we're going to be doing a movie review, something I watched recently, something that came out recently, and that's Longlegs from Perkins. So Perkins, the director, no stranger to cinema. He did an episode of the very recent Twilight Zone, Gretel and Hansel, fantasy, horror, and he has a couple other films under his belt. So like I said, he knows what he's doing. So this, I want to be very careful how I mention this before I even get into it. Let me paint you a picture here, my fine audience. I'm going to give you two movies, okay? It's a picture. Silence of the Lambs and Pet Sematary. Now, if I told you to label them both a genre, okay? Most people have heard of Pet Sematary and, to an extent, Silence of the Lambs. What would you pick Pet Sematary? Probably horror. Now, not everyone's going to say that about Silence of the Lambs, you know? Some people say horror. Some people say thriller, drama. It's big. It's big. When you have a family night or whatever, a wife or whatever, your partner, what's the more adult movie? Unless you're into, horror. Obviously, the winner would be Pet Sematary. But most people can all agree on Silence of the Lambs. It has a bigger audience, I believe, and just a very serious subject matter. But why isn't Silence of the Lambs categorized as a horror? Well, not to me anyway, recently. It probably is now, who knows. Anyway, Silence of the Lambs, to me, a thriller, a dark thriller at that. But why, once again, why isn't it categorized as a horror? It has a cannibal, has a guy who wears people's skin over him. It has very dark elements, okay? But I guess given the subject matter and the way it's done, it's like a detective thriller. Where Pet Sematary, you bury people in sacred ground and they come back not quite the original. So there's that not just supernatural, but really dreadful horror element there. So they're very specific films. Now, the reason why I mention them is I want you to think of this one. I think this is where the confusion is. Because right now, Longlegs is doing good. It's doing very well. It had a very big campaign of advertising. They did excellent. And it's not just because the fact you had Nicolas Cage there. Sure, he produced it, sure, he starred in it, but they kind of kept that from the audience up until recently. But great cast through and through, I think. But this, I don't want people to go into this thinking it's a horror movie. Sure, it looks on the surface level like a horror movie, and for all intents and purposes, it is to an extent. But to me personally, about 15-20 minutes into the film, I was like, this is playing out like a really dark detective thriller. In the vein of, so picture films like Seven, another movie that could pass or has elements of horror, but we're not going to call it Seven a horror movie, okay? Even though, if you look at it, face value, it kind of resembles that. But Longlegs, it's dark. There's evil elements, and it has that quality of a film like Hereditary or Midsummer. Slow burn, uses a wide range of imagery, the aspect ratio of the film. There's certain segments that, kind of really tighten the focus, makes it feel like an old picture, something shot on like 8mm. So it messes with you a little bit. Everyone, I think, did a great job. Obviously, the stands out. The people that stood out in the film were obviously Nicolas Cage playing the serial killer. But like I said, Blair Underwood, like I said, you had a good cast here. I'm not going to go down the list. You could look it up yourselves, but I'm here to talk about the movie. And is it the greatest horror movie of the century? Probably not, like I said. And I'm not trying to jump on any bandwagon here. I want you to go into it not really thinking this is the scariest movie. Just don't. Don't even maybe label it as horror. Go into this as like a dark thriller, okay? So basically the movie is about there's these killings that spanned over a couple of years in this little small town, and this detective who kind of inherits the case. She's on one of the scenes, potential scene, looking for a suspect. Partner dies, and the movie kind of picks up from there. I should probably warn you, there's going to be spoilers throughout. This is a review. It's not spoiler free. I don't know how I could explain this without it being spoiler free. So just keep that in mind. There's going to be a few spoilers. I'll try and keep it as vague as possible, but Anyway, so this particular detective, I believe her name was it Lee? Yeah, Lee Harker, and who does an excellent job in this. The actress, let me get her name right, Makaya Monroe, yeah, or is it? Yeah, I don't know. I'm having trouble pronouncing her first name. Anyway, she does an awesome job playing, this special agent Harker, and she reminds me of kind of like Detective Sterling from Silence of the Lambs, Jodie Foster's character, but where Jodie Foster's character was more intuitive and just had a different approach. Lee Harker, she kind of has like a clairvoyant, like she kind of knows things, she kind of suspects things, and she's right some of the times. So one of the main detectives here kind of takes her on board to help try to figure out this case. The case is this serial killer who goes by the name Longlegs, who technically, as they go through all the evidence, hasn't really did any of the crimes. He's a suspect. They're aware because he leaves notes, cryptic notes, and very cryptic languages. Think of something foreign, like how you look at the Russian language, how it looks. Someone who doesn't read Russian looks completely alien. Well, that's what these things are, and Lee Harker is trying to figure it out until she gets kind of drawn into it too. This serial killer, Longlegs, is very aware of her, and she's aware of him. And but there's a story there. So this thing has layers. You pull back layers, and it does suck you in. The entire, I want to see, mood of the film is very suspenseful, especially seeing this detective kind of go through trial, because she herself is questioning, like, okay, how come I know this? And the lead up, like, oh, I'm actually not just involved, my family, so her mother that she's kind of estranged with a little bit, and there's like a weird moment when they reconnect, and just something, the whole movie has this weird essence about it, it stands out a lot. Where movies like Hereditary, if you've seen it, definitely recommend that. They kind of stand out too. They have this, foreboding doom, like something bad's gonna happen, and there's no resolve. Now this one didn't have your typical Hollywood ending. Good versus bad. Normally good wins. Sometimes it doesn't. This one kind of left it very open ended, and like I said, this is all about the build. Layer. There was some shocking imagery. I mean, this isn't gonna scare the pants off you like when we first got introduced to Conjuring 2. I was in the audience for those two films, and people jumped back and gestured like they were frightened. It did have some decent jump scares. This one, like the audio definitely in certain scenes kind of stands out. The visuals stand out. And Nicolas Cage playing Longlegs was a great pick. I mean, it's Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage. It was just a really well done movie, and like I said, don't go expecting Avatar or Friday the 13th or whatever, something familiar, because this is a very standout, strange film. But I think that's also its charm, and I think people that appreciate indie or even borderline art house films might get a kick out of this. If you like those slow burns like Midsummer or Hereditary, because there is, throughout this film, there's a small supernatural element, evil. We learn later on in the film that Longlegs is a Satanist. There's a lot of wording and terminology from the Bible, especially towards the end, the book of Revelation, and a lot of demonology kind of stuff, but mostly Hail Satan, you know, all that kind of satanic images. Like, so back then, back in the 70s, they had like these, was it 70s or 60s? I don't know. They had like these line of films called, they were all like devil worshipping movies that always had some kind of evil element. Think of like Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist. There were a lot of movies. And it was like the satanic panic, they called, because people were worried about cults. And if you look at the Manson family, it kind of checked out. But, and this kind of plays on that, except the cult, the leader, the embodiment of this evil is Longlegs. And he uses pretty much, spoiler, the power of suggestion pretty much through, evil, evil, I guess, imagery you would want to say. He is an accomplice. I don't want to, if you've seen the movie, great. But I don't want to spoil it that much. That he utilizes through a trade, and that kind of sets up our main character and why Agent Lee Harker is attached to this whole case. And when you see it play out, because you think she's in control, you think, okay, she clearly has the upper hand. No, she doesn't. This is like one of those kind of twists. Kind of like in Seven, John Doe. John Doe had the upper hand at the end for sure, at the very last minute. This is one of those films, where you think you got it nailed, like, okay, that's it, game over, good wins, good triumphs over evil. Or does it? This is one of the endings that leaves you kind of guessing. The kills in this movie are not that brutal. We get a few dead bodies, some blood, some self-inflicted wounds. Like I said, full of imagery, really atmospheric. Even the shots were very uncomfortable. To me, they kind of felt off-kiltered. Maybe it has something to do with the aspect ratio. That was talked about a lot. Like I said, the cast, everyone did a wonderful job. The direction, I thought it was good. It had creepy elements. They had that small amount of supernatural. It's not like demonic possession. It's just, I want to say, demonic influence, devilish influence, led by a guy who had power of suggestion over people. But the means of doing it, not just by himself. He would pick out the victims, yes, and they all, there was it was like a birthday trend. People who had the same birthdays, he would go after, and it all came together. Like Lee Harker was doing all the detective work, and you see it slowly come together before she was kind of pulled into it. And yeah, it's just when you see it, you're like, oh, because at some point, unless you're super smart, then you figure out, okay, what the deal is here. But the way he utilized a doll, or dolls, I should say, because they mentioned he was like a doll maker, and utilizing what he knew and how to conjure up this evil and infect other people to do his dirty work pretty much through a doll. And even that, there were some elements of the dolls that he created were meant to be lifelike and friendly, but when they would have like this black veil over them, one scene stood out, and it was always the eyes. The eyes looked like snake eyes, kind of, or something evil, But there's a lot of imagery. This is probably a movie where you probably have to watch twice just to kind of wrap your head around it. Thought it was good. Like I said, it has that shock value, but it's all in the story and in certain elements. It's meant to scare you, not in the way to spook you, but it's to kind of assault your senses a little bit, make you do some of the homework. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit long. I felt like it was almost 2 hours, maybe. It's not gore-filled. There's not a lot of blood and violence, but it's there. Small doses, but it's the dread throughout the film, weighing down on the characters, because it's not a typical Hollywood movie. You don't know who's going to be safe, who's going to be the next victim. And when you see the twist at the end, you're going to be like, huh, and they're doing this to this person, and it's crazy. But overall enjoyable. I didn't hate it. I mean, it's not the best, it really keeps you engaged, and that's what I liked about it. And I thought it was an original, smart idea, especially when you add a serial killer aspect. How do you make that original? Well, I think the plot and what Longlegs tried to accomplish, yeah, I think that made for a good original serial killer and his choice of weapon, which was kind of brilliant, you know. But yeah, if you like dark, slow burn kind of movies in the vein of Seven, with that feel of Hereditary and Longlegs, I definitely recommend. Like I said, don't go into it expecting a gore fest, okay? You know, this isn't Hostel, and this isn't Hereditary. This is, if, you know, Seven and Hereditary had a baby, this would be it, you know. Has a little bit of that detective, Silence of the Lambs, Seven kind of feel to it, 8mm, with that mixture of some supernatural elements and the dread feeling of Hereditary, all in this one picture. And like I said, I think it's definitely worth checking out. Alright guys, hey look, if you've seen this already, Longlegs, let me know what your thoughts too. Put it in the comments. Hey look, if you made this fun video, thank you. Please like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, my friends, I'll see you all very, very soon. Peace.